Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to yet again another edition of Begin Again University, our crisis management and contingency planning course. I am your president and provost and chancellor here at Begin Again University. So glad that you're taking time to tune in with us on tonight. We believe it's going to be another dynamic time of helping you learn how to plan and navigate through crisis and calamity and confusing moments that may take place in your life so that you're able to navigate to a safe space, sacred place, and a place that you're looking forward to being able to take the next steps. As always, I love to spend time just kind of talking about what is Begin Again University and what is our leadership and relationship development, mentoring, and coaching platform, and how that kind of works together in congruence with what we do here at Begin Again University. And so remember, we've got those 4 M's that are always opportunities to help people begin to grow in their process of their life purpose. And so number 1, as you can see on the screen right there, there's mentoring, there's modeling. Bit 1 is mind molding with the motivation to begin again. And the reason I mentioned that one is so important because you can have the desire to want to begin again in various areas of your life, but without the mindset, without the mental capacity to be able to do so, it can become quite difficult for you. What do you gain when you're connected with us here at Begin Again University? There's monthly leadership training or monthly training in leadership relationships or organizational development, small business planning that happens in our weekly lunch and learns with our private Facebook community group, where you have the opportunity to do what I like to say, iron sharpening iron, with an opportunity to begin to grow. Sometimes we learn more from each other in this environment and on this stream that you're watching us on tonight than we do in a textbook or actually looking at studying on your own and by yourself. Some other component parts include leadership and organizational development, as I already mentioned. I like this one: relationship readiness, repair, and renewal. Sometimes you can have the mental assent to want to begin again relationally, but unless you've repaired some things from the last season, you may not quite yet be ready. And then there's got to be what I say, a renewal, a transformation and change that's taking place in your life. And as always, in each class, I always say, no matter what happens, you can begin again.
Yes, Coach, we can begin again.
That's some of those who are engaged in tonight's class on tonight. So our first master class has been underway since the beginning of June, right about the mid part of June, and we'll wrap up right about the mid part of September. This particular class that you're watching and that you're either catching on the replay tonight is literally our class on crisis management and contingency planning. And so remember, when we speak about crisis management, you'll see this right on the screen. It really is this. Crisis management is the ability to discern oneself, to discern and discipline oneself, to decide how to pivot to maintain the intended course of direction, regardless of the sort of incident that may have taken place in your life. So how do I still get to my end goal by making an opportunity to pivot and still be able to hit the goals that I've set for myself? That's what this class is really, really all about. So I'm glad you're tuning in on tonight. And so we want to begin tonight and get started and get right underway. Let's go to that first screen right there, Mike. I'll make it large on the screen for those who are tuning in and watching tonight. Tonight's topic, we want to talk about managing detours and course corrections without toxicity. Let me say that again. Managing detours and course corrections without toxicity. I think we all can agree that we've had different points and places in our life where we've had to make some shifts and some changes and some adjustments, right? Would everybody agree with that? That you've had to begin to look at, how do I adjust? How do I make changes in order to get to the intended goal that I'm looking forward to coming into? But the key about this is, how do I do it without toxicity? And what I mean by that is, how do I do that without the loss of relationships and without causing collateral damage? Let's go to that next screen there. Look at this one right here. I'll make this one large for those of you who are tuning in and watching at home. Crisis management is not only our ability to hear and heal and experience and handle unexpected catastrophes, but it's navigating through them by minimizing collateral damage. Everyone say that with me, collateral damage.
Collateral damage.
Yeah, let's say that with me again, collateral damage.
Collateral damage.
You can begin again.
Yes, coach, we can begin again.
The reason that this is so important is that you want to be able to take next steps in your ability to pivot without collateral damage. And all too often, so many of us, we end up taking next steps, and we may end up getting to our end goal, and we may end up pivoting, but the fallout that can happen as a result of what we do and how we do what we do is critically important. So I want to be able to talk to us tonight about how to manage this collateral damage that we all can tend to experience at different and varying points in our lives. Come on, let's make this next one a little bit larger on the screen for you. So listen, by way of definition, collateral damage is any death, injury, or damage inflicted that is incidental, or that is an incidental result of an activity. So let me say it again. It's a death, injury, or other damage that is an incidental result of an activity. You didn't mean for some kind of moment to happen in someone else's life, but it happened as a result of you seeing the importance and the need to be able to pivot. And so what I want to help us do is minimize collateral damage that can happen and take place in various areas of our lives. I see Letty is tuned in on tonight. Good evening, ma'am. So look at this. Check this out. And originally it begins with this terminology, collateral damage. Those of you who got military background, you understand this already. Originally coined in most military operations. How do we move in to be able to accomplish the goal to either get someone out of a situation or handle a situation with as minimal impact to those who are going to be surrounding the situation we've got to address. And I want you to think of this the exact same way in regards to how we handle collateral damage when it comes in the areas of relationships. Because when we look at relationships, and I'm talking about relationships of all kinds, whenever you've got to make a course correction or experience a detour, sometimes the collateral damage can be tough on those that are least expecting, and even those who are expecting or suspecting the change to begin to take place. So let me put the areas of collateral damage relationally that begin to impact us the most in various areas. And I'll put this one up, I'll make it large on the screen for those of you at home. Check this out. Collateral damage is really about relationship loss. So one of the first areas is you've ever experienced divorce or a breakup in romantic relationships. Maintaining connections with children, family, and associations is important. And we want to maintain an outlook perspective, and also we want to maintain image. And so sometimes when we end up moving on or moving and taking our next steps, sometimes the fallout of the impact, how many of you can agree with me that the impact of divorce on children is traumatic? I mean, as teenagers and as young children, sometimes they internalize that, and in their internalization, there will be manifestations that happen in all different kinds of a myriad of activities that can take place. So you want to be able to navigate loss in such a way where that doesn't happen, and you can minimize collateral damage. Let me say this as someone who's experienced this and moved on and now remarried. How you handle what you handle makes all the difference in the world. How you handle what you handle makes all the difference in the world. And I'm still talking about relationships. Let's employer-employee relationships. I don't have this one written down, but I'll kind of look at it under organizational. Consider this with me for a moment. You may be prepared, you may be tired of the current job that you're on. And we all know the old adage phrase, you never move on to the next place of employment until you have the current situation under control, or until you've got the new one already locked in place. And many people don't necessarily think about it this way, particularly young people. They don't think about their current performance on the current job that they're in, and the fact that a supervisor or managing leader has got to be somebody that's got to speak well of you, even if you are deciding to move on. So how you handle the relationships you're currently in right now make all the difference in the world. Look at this one, I'll make this large on the screen. When you consider business and organizational relationship laws, you want to maintain access to several important things: credit, cash. For those of you who own businesses, supply chain management is very, very important. You want to make access to your creditors so that you can continue to supply goods and services for your operation so that it functions well. Am I talking right so far tonight?
Yes, sir.
You also want to manage well economies of scale. In other words, there are different tiers whereby which income or revenue streams are developed, and how you handle your organizational navigation of supply chain management and economies of scale speaks to your reputation in the marketplace about whether or not you can be trusted, whether or not someone should do business with you, whether or not someone should engage in a contractual relationship with you in terms of the organization, in terms of business. Watch this one. I didn't put this one in. Even in the areas of intellectual property, can you be trustworthy enough to be able to handle how you do what you do? And no matter what happens, always remember, you can begin again.
Yes, Coach, we can begin again.
Because sometimes when you start thinking about credit, now all of us, come on, those of us who were in our 20s and early 30s, we maybe didn't handle credit too well, right? And so remember, if I was on a Sunday morning context, I'd be talking about how a good name is worth far more than rubies, right? So how you handle what you handle is so important. Sometimes picking up a phone, making a phone call and say, listen, I need a little bit of time, a little extra delay to be able to do some things. That can make all the difference in the world. Look at this last one. I had to put this one up here, seeing that I am a clergyman, a professional minister, a person engaging involved in ministry. When you look at collateral damage in this area, ministry callings, you want to maintain those and opportunities. How you do what you do is so important. Maintaining a reputation of integrity, maintaining your influence, credibility, your anointings, the ability to supernaturally do some things, your purpose and power / authority that's given to you by the Spirit. Whenever you've got to make a shift, whenever you've got to make a change, whenever you've got to move in a different area or a different environment ministerially or in terms of areas of ministry, that's so important. Just last evening, with Dominion Covenant Fellowship, I was meeting with our pastors internationally and nationally. And I took some time to talk with them, and I talked with them about how you exit a thing, that's how you enter it. And I was communicating to them about, Dominion Covenant Fellowship is not something that where I'm trying to lord over you as the bishop, and I believe that all of everything is in me. And then I've created tiers of affiliation. So there's the covenant one, there is the affiliate, and then there's the associate. Some people may want access to the coaching and consulting, but don't necessarily want to connect spiritually and have in terms of the accountability. That sounds strange, but it's not. You may want access to the wisdom, but you may not necessarily want me to tell you how to run your ministry, business, organization. I get that. You may not necessarily want me telling you how to live. I get that. But you may want access to the wisdom. So in creating those 3 tiers, I was able to say to them, how you do what you do is really important. And so I never want you to feel like you're exiting from me and moving into a different scenario or situation, and then all of a sudden, now the relationship that you had with the brothers and sisters of the fellowship has to be cut off because of a disassociation. Because how you exit a thing will be how you enter into a thing. Am I making good sense? So when we're talking about relationship loss, managing collateral is important. Just for those who are engaged in ministry who will see this next time, what you'll find is that the reason I created these tiers, and we've done 2-year cycles of reordination and affirmation, those things are so important because I never want anyone to feel like they have to maintain a certain level if they're feeling like someone else is able to meet a greater or better need. Okay? And so I want to welcome in the 2 Sheilas tonight. I'm just going to say both the good Sheilas are here. and say it that way. So we're talking tonight, ladies, about how to be able to minimize detour and managing detours and being able to handle pivoting without toxicity. And so on both of those, since you guys may have missed last week, you got both lessons right there, right underneath the water, right there to your right and left shoulder, whichever one you want to go with is fine. And both lessons are there. We're on lesson 6 for tonight. Let's keep moving. Go right on ahead. Look at this. I'll make this one large on the screen tonight. The key to minimizing collateral damage is understanding, excuse the typo, the process of detours and course corrections without toxicity. Let me say that again. The key to minimizing collateral damage, we should probably be on page 2 of your notes, is understanding the process of detours and course corrections without toxicity. All too often, we lose the power of relationships because of our level of toxicity. I heard Bishop Goldman during our convocation literally said, when you have gone through a traumatic event in your life, and you're very emotional about it, come off of social media. Because not everything is about your haters. Some stuff is about your inability to manage well detours. Or you may have come into some knowledge that you were not aware of before. And because you've come into some knowledge, now you got to make some adjustments. Or you may have found out what someone's real motivation was for engaging in relationship with you on whatever level it was, ministerial, business, romantic, and now you found out what they really are about. You've got to navigate, pivot, and still get to your own end goal. Learning how to be able to not take things personal. Come on, say that with me. Don't take it personal.
Don't take it personal.
What I want you to understand in navigating detours and course corrections is that it is not personal. I often teach about values. One of the things that I say is that values are how we make decisions. We don't make our decisions based upon what someone does or necessarily who someone is. We really make our decisions on how someone orients to us. Okay? What I mean by what's the motivating factor in terms of the values that they hold that are important to them. If you can get agreement on values, you can always handle how and what. Because your values, write this one down if you're taking notes, your values indicate the why. You can always get an understanding of why. You can handle how and what. The reason why I say that is because once you understand why, it will help you begin again. And like I always say, you can begin again.
Yes, Coach, we can begin again.
I'm in the right class on tonight. Come on, let me put this one up on the screen about toxicity. Check this out. Toxicity is about the acidity levels that determine whether something is toxic. Remember that from your chemistry class? So for example, in the substance of water, we measure acidity levels to determine if the water is drinkable or not. And in measuring acidity, we want to know what the pH balance is. You remember that? And so where expectations, I put this in here in regards to areas of toxicity, where the expectations in relationship, whether it is organizational, romantic, or ministerial, or ministry-oriented, where they clearly communicate. Because sometimes you may assume something that someone else is not thinking or thinking, and you got something totally different that you're thinking. So were you all on the same page? Okay, that is so important when it comes to just trying to find out acidity levels. Now look at this. I'm going to put this one large on the screen. Go to that next screen for me, Mike. pH balance literally stands for the power of hydrogen when we look at chemistry, which is the measurement of the body's hydrogen concentration. When we talk about balance, we're referring to the alkalinity or acidity that's going on in our bloodstream, in our blood, and this is measured on a scale of 0 to 14. And so when something is very acidic, by the time you move from 0 to 7 on the scale, anything in there is very, very toxic. Things that are from 7 to 14 are things that are not toxic. So you want stuff from 7 to 14 on your scale. Shameless plug. Both Lady and I are going to develop that that system or that survey test of how to determine if you're in a toxic relationship. And then after we develop it, we'll apply it to business, organization, ministerial. How to know if you're in a toxic church. How to know if you're in a toxic family. How to know if you're in a toxic relationship. How do you find that out? And then how do you pivot and adjust accordingly? Watch this now. With course correction and detours without losing relationship. That's what I want. If you don't get anything else out of all 6 of these sessions and nothing else on the next one, I want you to maintain relationships. Jot this down. Maintain relationships for leverage. Maintain relationships for leverage. Let's say it again. Maintain relationships for leverage. I don't gotta like you for us to do business together. I don't gotta like you for us to even serve together, even if we're the same church. I don't gotta like you. What I do have to do is respect you. And I do have to honor your gifts, talents, and abilities. And I do have to make room for you to do what you do. So often we fall out with people and we lose leverage. I want you to think about, there are so many. I had a conversation with someone who was very close to me in ministry that left, moved on with their lives, and sent me a text message today about how they perceived the situation and how my lack of response hurt them. And so I responded back by saying, the last thing I want to do is have anything between me and you. So I'd love to have an eye-to-eye, face-to-face conversation so that I can communicate why my lack of communication was the way that it was. In my inability of not being able to speak on certain subject matters because of the critical nature. So it wasn't personal to you. It was more me having to manage, watch this, the professionalism of the environment that I am in, ministerial. Okay? And so I said, let's get together and let's do a Zoom. Now, if I want to just operate toxically, here's what my response could have been. Yeah. Y'all really want me to be honest with you? Okay? A lady is going to have a fit with me because I'm going to use this word while she's watching. I could have said, Negro, did anybody ask me how I felt about the situation? You only concerned about your perspective. Did anybody ask me about how I felt and how I was dealing? And how was I okay? Did anybody ask? Nobody asked that, right? But what I value is the relationship. Watch this, for the future. So since I value the relationship for the future, let me communicate with you about why my lack of communication was the way that it was. Because I'm concerned about where we're going to be 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 6 months from now. Does that make sense? You want to navigate without toxicity because relationships are important. Nothing gets done, jot this down, nothing gets done without relationships. I got to say that again. Nothing gets done without a relationship. Let me go over here and check the comment section. She types in, let me just put it up for those who will catch it on replay. I'm watching, laughing out loud, she said. So I think I did pretty good in handling that. What say y'all? All right, so now watch this. Go to that next screen with these slides up for me, Mike, with the chart. When your pH balance is off, you are more prone to infections. And let me make this one larger on the screen for those of you who want to catch the replay. So your stomach already has a certain level of toxicity. When you add vinegar, there's more. Coffee has a certain level of toxicity. Water, baking soda, ammonia solution, bleach, battery acid, lemon. See all of this? Tomato, milk, your blood automatically has a certain level of toxicity. Okay? The drain cleaner, soap, tablets, all of these things in proper balance work well. When the acid in your stomach is balanced, it breaks down your food properly so that you can discharge it. And then that which needs to be turned into energy can be turned into energy. Am I right? If the balance of water has the proper pH balance, nutrients happen for the body. If the bleach has the proper level of toxicity, it can properly clean and get rid of mold, mildew, and a few other areas. Does that make sense? Okay. If the tomato, if it's got the proper pH balance, it has a perfect amount of acidity, it will work wonders for the body. All right? Battery acid, if it's got the proper level of toxicity, am I talking okay? You can charge your car the way that you need to. I hope that that is making good sense. Now, go to the next one for me. Look at this, and also in your notes. When there is an infection in the body, it can cause areas of your body to lose balance and cause improper function. The pH balance of substances such as your bodily fluids, organs can affect your digestion, hormones, metabolism, and overall bodily function. Anybody ever been there before? When something gets off in your body, there's an infection that happens, things kind of go awry. Now watch this. Here's something we probably never take time to think about. When we start to discuss pH balance in terms of navigating the process of detours and course corrections, as it relates to our pH balance, when we're starting to talk about relationships, we're talking about personal happiness. Our personal happiness. So what fuels levels of toxicity is when we feel our personal happiness is threatened due to the change. Whenever you got to course correct, whenever you got to make a change, whenever you got to navigate into a different space, it is real easy to allow toxicity levels because of the change to affect your personal happiness. And so when we start to talk relationships, whether that's ministerially, ministry, business, organization, romantic, parenting, we start talking relationships, maintaining personal, how many of you would agree with me, maintaining personal happiness is important? I mean, is it definitely personal happiness for you important? Sabine, personal happiness for you important, Sheila? Yeah, personal happiness is important. I want to just pause right here for a second. And I want to just kind of have a dialogue with us because, particularly for those of us as believers, we can be led to believe that God doesn't want us to be personally happy because of the idea, the call toward holiness, the call toward serving, even preferring and serving others before yourself. When we quote the Beatitudes of Jesus, for it is more blessed to give than it is to receive. But I want to have a little pushback, not on the Beatitudes, but the pushback theologically of the thought that God doesn't want us to have personal happiness. Because last time I checked Romans 8:28, my Bible said all things work together for the good to them that love God, here it is, and are called according to his purposes. If I'm looking at Jeremiah 29:11, I'm saying, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you, to give you a hope and a good future. I like the last part of it, an expected good end. So God is concerned about our personal happiness. And it is absolutely okay. I gotta say this one just as loud and bold as I can. Sometimes you've got to make decisions for detouring and course corrections because your own personal happiness is at stake. And what I mean by that is being able to navigate relationships where you reduce the toxicity level so that your end goal is maintained. Okay? So that your end goal is maintained. We're gonna get into some of this a little bit more tonight. Time getting away. Let me roll through. So check this out right now. These feelings, toxicity and self-awareness, so important. So in order to manage the toxicity level, you got to be self-aware. Okay? Let's make this one large on the screen. Yep. These feelings, emotions, thoughts, and opinions are rooted in an imbalanced self-concept of ourselves, stemming from some area of rejection. Whenever we move into toxicity, whenever we start responding with a toxic approach, it's coming from another place. It's coming from some areas of rejection, anger. I remember just most recently in ministering at one of our sister churches in Norfolk. I was right in the midst of a deliverance session, moment, I should say at the altar, not session, a moment at the altar. And this particular woman I was ministering to was, really abused by men in her life, really abused by her husband. And so, I don't know if any of you heard of theoplastic ministry. It's where you begin to kind of impersonate, if you will, the abuser, or impersonate the person who caused the abuse of the offense. And you speak to the individual from the perspective that they may not be aware of. So in the moment, I've been trained in theoplastic ministry many years now. So in the moment, I had men stand around her. And I took on the posture of her father and her husband. And here were the words I started to say to her. I started to say to her, I'm sorry. I really didn't know any better. Nobody ever taught me. I thought this was the way that things were supposed to be done. And so because nobody ever taught me, I ended up abusing you without even knowing I was abusing you. Would you please forgive me? That's what the apostle does. All of a sudden, in that moment, we started to get down to the deliverance moment, and her whole countenance of her presence changed. And as the countenance of her presence changed, I had men standing around her, all of us in concert. They were repeating after me, saying these things, and it was almost triggering for her. And so she couldn't get out of the circle, and all of a sudden she looked at me with this contorted face and said, "You meant to do it. You really meant to do it." And I started to say, "No, I didn't. I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean for that to happen to you." And as I began to say that, deliverance began to happen to her. Why? Because she really thought in her mind that what happened to her was intentional. And because of the anger and the rage and the disappointment, now, this is not Sunday morning, it's Wednesday night crisis management course, but I got to interject a little bit of spirituality in here right here, okay? Demonic manifestation of oppression took over her behavior and her thought process, and she stayed trapped for many years. And then in her being trapped, projecting on to the next generation, her opinions, thoughts, attitudes, feelings about men. And so now can you start to see a generational curse at work? Because she took on a mindset that this that happened to her was intentional. How much more so if we become self-aware, jot that down, self-aware. If we become self-aware, can we manage the process of course corrections and collateral damage in our decision making? I'll say it again. When we become self-aware, how much more so can we manage collateral damage in our decision making? If we can become self-aware. Check this out over here. Even before I didn't realize I was there already. Yeah. So let me pull this one up on the screen just a little bit larger. Good. When you consider this, these feelings, emotions, thoughts, opinions are rooted in an imbalanced self-concept of ourselves, stemming from some area of rejection, some area of anger and disappointment, some area of disillusionment. I got to speak to that one. I got to speak to disillusionment just for a second. Sometimes We can become so disillusioned that we believe false realities. We can, but because our desire is for something so much so that we can believe a false reality. Lady and I are in a moment right now where we're providing counsel to a woman. And as we provide counsel to her, we are explaining to her that the traits that this man is exhibiting is abusive in nature and without accountabilities outside of her, there was very little opportunity for change. So for Letty and I, it's like the book of Daniel, we're reading the handwriting on the wall many, many times. We're seeing abuse, misuse, mishandling, and we're saying this. But because the woman is disillusioned, I can change her if I just be kind and nice enough. I've already had one bad breakup. I don't want another. Lady is screaming loudly. Have you considered the impact of your decisions on your child? This is a child, right? But because of false reality, disillusionment, rose-colored glasses, she believing there's going to be some change. And we're saying the patterns, I better say it to you this way, I said it better. Believe people when they show you who they are repeatedly. Write that down. That's worth the price of admission. Believe people when they show you who they are, here's the caveat, repeatedly. Because sometimes, some people just don't know how to do better. And when they don't know how to do better, you got to course correct, you got to change, and you got to navigate to a different space. Why? Because of pH balance for your own personal happiness. Am I talking all right in here tonight? I'm trying to get from going Sunday morning, but I feel it. So now, let's go here. How to minimize collateral damage and toxicity. So number one, self-aware. I think we put that one up already. Let's throw it up again. Self-aware. We must understand how we are wired. We got to understand how we see the world. It's critically important that we don't enforce upon others our worldview. It's important that we don't enforce upon others our worldview. Okay? While taking into consideration, check this out, who they are, where they are from, their life experiences, excuse the typo, and how they process. Let me do those again. Who they are, where they're from, how they process, and their life experiences. All of that feeds into what makes up a person. So, in other words, I'll make the application this way. This is why I had you do personality testing. So that when you understand you, it's so important to make sure that just because you're either a lion, turtle, chameleon, or flamingo, that not everybody else is flamingo like you. Some other people are turtles. Some other people are snapping turtles. Some people are lions. And some people, other people are flamingos. Okay? So, but you understanding you will help you orient to the world around you. Now, in other words, that puts you into what I call, Sheila, I'm going to pick on you, some schizophrenic moments. I'm sure you and I are the same in this sense that sometimes we talk to each other in the mirror before we get into our professional workspaces. I'm going to go in here today, and I ain't going to say nothing to nobody. If they don't say nothing to me, I'm going to say nothing to you. If they don't start nothing with me, I'm going to start nothing with you. Raymond, you got to watch your mouth today. You know how they are. Right? That's called being self-aware and self-managed. And it is good to do that. Why? Because you want to minimize collateral damage. Okay? Let me tell you what happens to people who don't do that. When they get into spaces of conflict, they lose promotions, they lose access to new opportunities. Am I talking right? See, I want you to be able to navigate and detour and pivot without loss, all because you're managing toxicity. Okay? Number two, reevaluation and perspective change. We must be willing to reevaluate what's important to us and adjust our perspective about what is a win. How many of y'all like to win? Come on. Come on, come on. How many of y'all like to win? I like to win in everything. I want to win the spades game. I want to win the dominoes game. I want to win the argument. I want to win the point proving. I want to win. Come on. All right? But not everything is about the win. You have to adjust what a win is for you when you're dealing with collateral damage and detours and course corrections. You got to evaluate what the win is for you. I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. I talked about it last week. I'm going to talk about it in just a few minutes. Number three, when you've got moments where you've got to pivot, you've got to have a short memory. Okay? We have to have a short memory when it comes to our past. If heaven forgets, so should we. We cannot spend our time brutalizing ourselves about when, what, would, could, or should have happened. We can't. It's over with now. The milk is on the floor. We got to clean the milk up off the floor, figure out how to get a new milk cart, and keep it cool in the refrigerator because I'm going to be thirsty again and I want some milk with myself. Am I talking all right back there? Okay. Sometimes we go over and over and over. I know I've been guilty of that myself. Just over and over and over and over and over and over again in my mind. Well, if this person would have done this, I would have done that. If they would have done this, then I would have done that. If they would have just done this, then this wouldn't happen to be that way. Understanding that everybody not you. So they're going to handle and process things according to how they're wired. The key is not allowing how they're wired and how they process mess with your end goal. All right? So I want you to reevaluate, and I'm going to talk about number three again in a second, which leads me to number four, barriers and boundaries. It is important to have barriers and boundaries in certain spaces and dynamics until we have healed. So look here. I'll use me as an example. I'm saved. I'm spirit-filled. I pray about 45 minutes a day, 3 days a week. I read my Bible. I study not only for my professional responsibilities as a preacher, but also for me. And I still got boundaries and barriers because I know me. So I still got certain places I don't go. I still got some people I can't be around. Okay? I still got situations and dynamics that I stay out of because Raymond is a lion. And on this particular issue, in this particular area, it won't take Raymond long before the lion comes out. Lions operate by impulse of what they feel and what they see and what they sense, and will tear your head off and ask questions later. So if I want to stay out the lockup, keep from having a felony, come on, talk to me. I gotta stay out of certain environments and I gotta keep up barriers because the Holy Spirit is still working on me in certain areas. And that is absolutely okay. So sometimes the boundaries and barriers of protection are for the other person or environment and other people than it is for you. You protected them by not going, by staying at home, by not saying nothing, by staying out of their space, by not responding to the text message. Come on, am I talking all right there? I got a comment in from somebody. Let me throw this up to respond and say good evening. All right, so let me jump back in over here. So you got to refuse to engage in certain conversations, resist temptation, defend yourself, and move the idea that last bullet point is particular. I had to learn this one the hard way, guys. Remove the idea that explanations will change a person when you add to it places, scenarios, or things matter. Just because you explain it, like today, all I could give was a 3-4 line sentence. During that period of time, I was under the inability of not being able to communicate due to the critical nature of the process that I was in. So it wasn't personal to me. I wasn't talking a lot because I never wanted anything that I said to be misconstrued. It was that way. So don't take this personal, right? So you got to understand, I went that way because no matter what I said, that person's perspective is going to be that person's perspective. They feel hurt and offended and upset. That's not going to change because I explained the dynamics. Am I making sense? So it's more important to not even get into a whole long, drawn out thing. Let me just say, I love you. How can we reconcile? God, we got two different perspectives on this issue. Okay? And because we got two different, we can disagree without being disagreeable. I'm talking about managing toxicity and controlling collateral damage. Because relationships are important. I hope somebody's getting this. All right, number 5, intentional focus, and we'll land with it. We must learn to keep the main thing the main thing. Say that with me. I must keep the main thing the main thing. One more time. I must keep the main thing the main thing. Now here's the key. You may have to reevaluate what your main thing is. Okay? You may have to reevaluate what your main thing is. Okay? We must determine what this is for us. Don't allow someone else's main thing to become your main thing. Okay? Always evaluate your main thing from heaven's standard, not cultural standards. Jot that down. Never evaluate your main thing based upon cultural standards, because culture will shift and change. People will have opinions. Fox News got an opinion, CNN got an opinion, Bloomberg got an opinion, MSNBC got an opinion, Twitter, X now got an opinion, Facebook got an opinion, TikTok got an opinion. Don't set your main thing based on other people's opinions. Be sure everyone, this one, I gotta make this large on the screen, and then we landed this plane for the house. Be sure everyone in that sphere of influence of the relationships you want to maintain romantically, organizationally, business, ministry, be sure everyone is playing or operating, I should say, according to the same rules. That's intentional focus. Because you know you live in a world of pluralism. And what's true for you may not be true for everybody. So you got to make sure everybody is on the same page, playing according to the same rules, in order to maintain your intended focus of what your end goal of a win is. Okay? Of what your end goal of a win is. That one is critically important. So here's what I want to do. Last week, your homework was to revisit and review. Go to the next screen, Mike. Visit and review tough space and places of emotional moments. Write down and record how. Okay. So then, that one was the week before last. Last week, I wanted you to combine your homework with where you are on your 7-step list. So in last week's notes, you should have that 7-step list. Okay? Then I want you to develop what and where you are going to provide a flip. Remember our last week we talked about how to flip it. How to take a bad situation, how to flip it around. Okay, based on that 7 steps list from last week's week. Okay? And for the 2 Sheilas, those notes, you guys have those notes now. Now here's what I want you to do for homework next week. Go to that next one. I want you to take the previous 2 weeks' homework, and I want you to put it all together. I want you to develop action steps and strategies to reducing collateral damage and levels of toxicity while maintaining personal happiness. So I want you to take the 7 steps list. I want you to take the emotional moment and how you turn that around and use it in the fuel. Then I want you to put it together with your what your idea of a win is for you. Okay? And then in the class in September, I want you to put all that together. Should probably take you maybe a page and a half. And then each of us, we're going to go around the room at the meeting in September. We're going to say, hey, this is what my emotional traumatic issue was. Here is how I turned that emotional traumatic issue into fuel and fire for me to maintain my win. Here is how I developed, or I plan on developing, reducing collateral damage. Here is what a win is for me now versus what a win was for me then. Let me tell you why going through these steps like this is important. Because remember, the name of this class is Crisis Management and Contingency Plan. You don't know in 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027 what crisis is coming your way. But you got to know of a surety that a crisis is coming. And to the degree that you're able to master what we've talked about over the last 6 weeks is going to determine if you're able to maintain personal happiness in this year. Okay? For the purposes of our streaming audience tonight, I want you to go back and reread again and re-listen to me again on the homework so that when we gather in September, that you've got what you need in place. Feel free to inbox me if you need help on fulfilling the homework assignments so that you are able to be tracking with us in September, because I want you to have a master template plan, and I'm going to help you with that. Those of us who are still here, I'm going to use me as an example, and I'm going to communicate how to do some of the homework. But what I'm going to describe is going to be sensitive in nature, so we're not constrained on. But thank you for tuning in for tonight, and I appreciate you jumping in and tuning right in with us. We'll see you in September when we gather together again for more crisis management and contingency planning. Y'all take care. God bless you tonight. Take care.